Let's talk about your new record, Image Issues, which is awesome, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So 26 tracks. That is an epic release. What inspired you to release such a big project?
Well, honestly, I didn't even intend for the album to be so big. I humbly accepted what I felt like needed to be said within my spirit at the time. And, some of it I stand by, some of it now I've grown past, and some of it still being worked out spiritually. But I feel like that album was so epically, you know, so many tracks is because I just poured my whole soul out on that thing, man. There's anger, there's joy, there's everything. And some of the songs are old, like some of the songs are like almost 10 years old, like Fallout is recently released as a single. Well, it started 10 years ago. But like something as recent as like, let's say, Wanted You to Know, which is my brother's song, a memorial to him as he was murdered last April. It's recent pain, and I just had to get it out. It had to be on there. I was like, you guys, we got to put another song there.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was just an outpouring, really. And it's not like everything that's on that album, I'm like, this is how I live forever. This is where I was at those times. Every track you heard was a different time, a different point of development within me. So that's why it became so thick. That's why it's two vinyls.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
Someone else who obviously is really sold in your music and just really loves everything that you're doing is Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam, who
Love him.
is releasing your record on his label, which is awesome. So I want to know the whole story about how you guys kind of hooked up.
He expresses very well and emotes very well what it means to explore the depths of kindness. And so, with that being said, one of our mutual friends introduced us through, one of his concerts. And they were like, you got to meet this young lady, Brittany Davis. She's this, she's that. Blah blah. I don't even like to talk about myself in that tense, but like, but he heard me playing that because one of us, we had like a recording session at his studio, and we were just like there shooting gums. We just out there, we just out there jamming, watershedding as they call it where I'm from. And he actually heard some of the takes, and he's like, oh wow, this is something in there. This is different. This is hearing me play and hearing me sing. He's like, okay, this is something that could develop into something. Can we get an album? Can we get an EP? Can we get and it was honestly, it was a group of us at first, but it then whittled down to just working with our mutual friend and myself. And Stone was just like enamored with the stuff that I was coming up with. And he he so expressively says in one of his interviews, calls me a keyboard assassin. And he's just, his introduction was so smooth. Like, okay, I'd heard of Pearl Jam before, but I didn't really recognize the depths of the legendary, status that they had. And so I honestly, I was kind of lost. It was kind of lost to me how amazing, his journey was, and the journeys that he had helped facilitate. And so, like, I was like, man, I can't, I met him as a friend, and I can't even think of him as this legendary. I don't compartmentalize him at all. Like, he's so integral in my movement. Like, whenever he calls me, I'm just like epic jumping up and down, like, yes, my boy, you know what I'm saying? But it's just because of his kindness. It don't even have none of like our musical arrangement and all the loose screw and the paperwork. Sometimes it's easy to kind of like let it slide, like not slide like go unnoticed, but all of that stuff kind of fades into the background when it comes to like the fullness of our friendship. And like, we're so goofy together. Like, we've been doing these little workshops and learning how to, work with each other, and painted shield is crack-a-lacking, and it's just like all this cool stuff we doing. It's awesome. Like our story is just like a saga of epic, crazy goodness. It's great, fun.
That's great. So there's a quote in one of your press releases that really struck me. It says, it's from you. It says, "Sound is the way I've always seen the world." Can you elaborate on how important sound has been to you?
Well, I always say it like this: my monsters never roared, they always sung. So, you know how it is when you're a kid and you're scared of something in the dark. Man, I never heard a roar in my life. I always heard something singing, some kind of song or some kind of melody or rhythm that told me that something bad was going to happen, or even something good was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Certain chord progressions expose my mind to different things. I had to do a expensive journey on that sonically. That's a good idea. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, like that's why I say it's my first language. Kind of having it as an interpretation or a tool of interpretation of the world around me. Like sometimes I would go into people's houses and just the smell of the incense would conjure a melody in my mind. And either it was a good melody or not a good melody. And depending upon that melody, I would or would not go into people's houses. There was no separation. They call it kind of synesthesia. It was this synesthesia, of how I experienced the world. Just literally every machination of my mind was centered around sound and music, rhythm, melody, harmony.
Have you ever felt discriminated against because of being blind or non-binary or a person of color? Like, have you ever come up against that?
So I believe so, but I'm not sure because there's so many different avenues that can be taken. Being blind for sure, being black, the non-binary part of me is very, very new. And I'm like, hey, look, I love my people, but I gotta trust in God about what He said about me. So when I call non-binary, I'm learning more about that. It's like this discrimination that I was taught to give to myself, right? I feel like I was taught to discriminate against myself more than other people discriminated against me, is what I'm trying to say.
That's a good point.
If all they got is their eyes in my body, judgment's gonna come between us because of what they were taught. See, that's what they were taught. That ain't even against them. That's against what we have put in the footnotes of society. Everybody's accepted except for in this way. But everybody's accepted. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing I talk about is body positivity being a form of sometimes discrimination because first of all, it don't matter how many accolades you give. If you don't feel positive if you don't feel good in your body or about your body, you can have all the awards in the world, but there is no positivity. So I tell people that because I want them to understand that, being racially discriminated against and discriminated against because one is blind is way different than being taught to hate yourself because you can't even see yourself. How would I know if I was ugly? Unless somebody was to either one tell me or show me that they felt that way about me.
Do you think that being true to who you are is important in the music world, like when making music? Because I do feel like a lot of artists feel pressure, to fit into a certain mold, kind of like the mold you're describing. But do you think that being true to yourself is important?
As an artist, my main objective is to be true. Not even just to myself, but just be true and expand yourself. As truth takes you, truth will lead you. It will guide you. You let it, it will guide you. For real.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. What other advice do you have for musicians, up and coming musicians, young people who want to make music?
I'm going to be honest with you. You have got to consult with your creator first because this industry is not a seat that you could just sit down and say, okay, now I'm in it. Your mind and your body and your spirit got to be on one accord to do this work. It's not just about the money. It ain't about the fame. It ain't about the accolades. It's literally, it could be life and death for real. And my next piece of advice is to don't do it, but become it. because people can take stuff from you that you do. Nobody can take something from you that you are at your core. Become what it is. Become the truth that you've been called to bear. Become that. And that will enrich your journey. That will give you life. That's why I say don't do it, but become it. Because once you get into that place, man, once you get in that secret place, man, I'm telling you, there ain't nothing like it. God gonna take you there. Your music gonna take you only so far. God will take you the rest of the way.